What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to your home for all things combat sports.
Yo.
So, Nick, my goodness, Magomed Ankalaev, Jan Błachowicz. So there's a lot to unpack here, and I think the only fair way to talk about it is in two separate forms. The first form being who won this fight optically. Like when you look at the fight, damage done, which guy had the more control time throughout the course of the fight, who won. And I think that's pretty clear that Magomed Ankalaev would be the victor if you scored it that way. Unfortunately, with MMA, we score things on a round-by-round system. And so that does make the case for the draw a little bit more narrow. Now, how did you see it? Did you see this going as a draw, or did you see Magomed Ankalaev clearly winning?
Well, it was a great fight, first and foremost. I think these two rose to the occasion. They were planning for 3 rounds. They were planning for a co-main event slot, which is a very big deal. Nonetheless, it is totally different than going into a 5-round main event pay-per-view fight for not an interim title, but for the real deal title. And Ankalaev showed up and did exactly what he had to do, but everybody knows that Jan Błachowicz became the UFC champion because of how good he is. And he's beaten people like Israel Adesanya and a ton of people on his rise to the belt. So I thought that Ankalaev was going to have his hands full, probably have the most difficult test of his entire career. And that's exactly what we saw. Now, you have to look at it a couple of different ways. If you watch that first round, it was a competitive round, right? That was the one that was kind of in question for some people. And I think maybe that would be the most debatable round. Round 2 and round 3, easy for me, went to Błachowicz.
Definitely.
And round 4 and round 5, easy for me, went to Ankalaev. And I know the judges score the round one by one, and then they just tally it up at the end. But I do kind of feel like as the fight goes on, the importance of positions, the importance of what the crowd is doing, the reactions, do play a factor in the judges' minds. I know it's supposed to be totally non-biased, but they are humans at the end of the day, and they do have to sit there in front of a 20,000 plus person crowd and score a fight. So that can be a bit difficult. And I feel like if you watch the fight from round 1 to round 5, you can understand why Ankalaev would have likely gotten his hand raised. But if you were to just reverse it, just take those rounds 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and watch them that way, you might go, you know what? I think Jan Błachowicz might have won that fight.
That's such a good point.
Yeah, and it's a weird way to look at it. Obviously, that's not the way we watch fights, and I know they're getting a lot of flack for giving this a draw, but I kind of feel like they may have made the right choice. I don't agree totally with the way they scored the fight, but that's as close of a title fight as you're possibly going to get, and I don't think they deserve to get quite as much hate as they've been getting.
Well, yeah, and it's the weird thing, and I think what's compounding on this pylon that's happening to the judges right now is each judge scored it differently. So you have one judge who scored it for Jan, one judge who scored it for Ankalaev, and then you have a judge who scored it the 47-47 draw. Now, listen, if you come to the conclusion that this fight was a draw and your justification, as you're saying, was that Jan won rounds 1, 2, and 3, I can see that, and then round 5 obviously being a 10-8 round, that would mathematically make it a 47-47 fight. So round 1 really is the one that we have to bring into question here. Now, I scored round 1 for Magomed Ankalaev, but by the slightest of margins, and then I had 2 and 3 for Błachowicz, 4-10-9 for Ankalaev, and then 5-10-8 for Ankalaev. So my final score, if I were sitting down with a scorecard, would be 48-46 for Magomed Ankalaev. But that being said, if you scored at 47-47 and you made the justification that first round in your eyes went to Jan Błachowicz, I could see how you could make an argument there, and it could be a valid one.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And I'll have to go back and watch the fight. It's one of those ones when there's controversy around it and it was such a great fight, you have multiple reasons to go back and watch the fight again and kind of get your own opinion when it's not happening live and you're constantly thinking about every little move and you're in the moment. So I will go back probably tonight and watch the whole fight through. But just at first glance, I thought Jan Błachowicz won the first round. I thought he won the next 2 rounds, and I thought he was doing a lot of damage to those legs of Ankalaev. When you see a guy like that switch stances so much, and then the front leg that he has now put, that was in the back and now it's in the front, is getting beat up so bad that he has to put the already damaged leg back in the front, you start to really worry for that guy, and you think, you know what, this guy might not even be able to make it off the stool into the championship rounds. But Ankalaev is a true warrior. He has that championship mentality, and Jan Błachowicz even said it himself. He thinks he won that fight. If you ask me, I think he did more damage in the 2 rounds that he was in control than Jan Błachowicz did in the 3 rounds that Jan Błachowicz was in control. But of course, these rounds are so different. They're so narrow. And then when you have one that comes out and it's so across the board for Ankalaev, and I had it a 10-8 too, that 5th round.
Yeah.
It does sort of just wind up being a draw because I had it 3 rounds going into the 4th for Jan Błachowicz, and then I had 2 major rounds for Ankalaev. So I wish there was a belt strapped around one of these guys' waists, and Jan Błachowicz even said it himself, give the guy the belt. I think he won that fight. All I know is I don't think I won it. I'm not going to say I lost it, but I say a draw is about as good of a performance as I can say I did. So Jan Błachowicz's management and his PR team is probably pulling their hair out when he's saying this stuff. You know what? In that moment, you got to pine for yourself. I know you're a warrior. I know you have a heart of gold, but don't say that your opponent just won the fight. That's going to screw you in the next title opportunity that may be coming. And we don't know what's going to happen next. We got to get a belt around somebody at 205 because Yuri Prochazka is going to be out for quite some time. And it just sucked to see Ankalaev get robbed of a moment like that, even though I personally did see it as a draw.
Yeah, and I saw it 48-46 for Ankalaev. But at the end of the day, both of these guys fought an amazing fight. And I think a lot got taken away from how good Jan did in the early part of that fight just because of how dominant the end was. But the way he was timing that low calf kick, even when Ankalaev was switching stances, he would time it perfectly when he switched back just for a fraction of a second. When he put that weight on that foot in the front, he would boom, hit that calf. I mean, it was a thing of absolute beauty. He was hitting the calf. He was hitting the knee. Both legs from Ankalaev were hurt pretty badly. Jan was throwing that great combination that he throws a lot, which is a hard one to land, quite frankly. He starts with an uppercut to the body and finishes with a 2 to the face, and some of those really landed well. They really hit home. So credit to Jan Błachowicz, who had a beautiful first 3 rounds. And to be honest, look, this fight was booked as a 3-round fight. So if that was the only 3 rounds we got to see, we're talking about a domination for Jan Błachowicz. So we would be having a very different conversation today if this didn't end up becoming a title fight, which I think is something you have to consider.
Totally. And I think that even though Jan Błachowicz is a little bit older and Ankalaev is seen as the future of the 205 division, some of these old dogs at 205 just don't seem to want to go away. And it seems like these younger dudes, Alex Pereira that's going to move up to 205 eventually, and Yuri Prochazka and Ankalaev, all of them are going to have to deal with these 40-plus-year-old guys for just a couple more years because they very much still can compete with the best in the world.
They're not old guys hanging around the division anymore. They're contenders and champions.
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching this video, guys. We're your hub for all things combat sports. If that's your jam, we appreciate a subscribe and a like on the video, and drop us a comment down below. We'll see you next time.
Peace.